Good morning, everyone. I am Martina, and today, together with my colleagues, we will discuss the ESRS S2 standard, specifically the process that led to its issuance, its contents, and its potential future impact on companies. But first, let me give you a brief introduction to the EFRAG and the ISRS standards it has developed. The EFRAG, so the European Financial Reporting Advisory Group, was established in 2001 with the support of the European Commission to provide technical advice on financial reporting. Initially acting as a bridge between the international financial reporting standards and the European institutions, in 2022, it was also entrusted into developing the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. This mandate aims to enhance the transparency and align sustainability reporting with European priorities, particularly in the wake of the past financial crisis. EFRAG's main activities includes providing endorsement advice to the European Commission on IFRS adoptions, improving IFRS standards by engaging stakeholders, and finally, developing upstream influence through global discussion and policy shaping. The introduction of the ESRS marked a significant shift in sustainability reporting within the European Union, moving from voluntary disclosures under the Non-Financial Reporting Directive to a more structured and standardized framework under the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. However, the adoption of delegated regulation of the European Union number 2023/2772 led to a reduction of up to 50% in mandatory disclosures, raising concerns about transparency, sector-specific reporting gaps, and flexibility of greenhouse gas emission reporting. ISRS standards are divided into three main categories: the cross-cutting, the thematic, and the sector-specific. And their goal is to enhance transparency and accountability in environmental, social, and governance matters, reinforcing corporate responsibility. These transitions from the NFRD to the CSRD demonstrated the EU's commitment to improving sustainability reporting. But now let's get more involved into the ESRS S2 and its implications.
Before diving into the definite scope of the ESRS S2, we would like to give a more general overview of the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, more precisely the ones dealing with social topics. Starting from the first, the ESRS S1, it deals with general working environment conditions that a company has to guarantee to its own employees, with particular attention to the safety, fair treatment, and equal chances. The main purpose is to ensure job stability to workers, wages that comply with the principle of fair compensation, regulated working hours, equal treatments despite gender and diversity. The second standard, the ESRS S2, is strictly related to the ES1, and it addresses working conditions and fair treatment of workers in the value chains, like suppliers, distributors, subcontractors, seeing as working conditions of these third parties may be directly affected by the company itself. Firms are encouraged to work with suppliers, partners, and distributors that ensure the same working conditions that the organization itself is required to ensure to their own employees. And they have the responsibility of negotiating, monitoring, and encouraging third parties to comply with ethical labor practices. Moving on to the third standard, we shift to a more comprehensive dimension dealing with communities' economic, social, and cultural rights. Among these, we find adequate housing, adequate food, safe working environment, in addition to the protection of basic human rights like freedom of assembly and freedom of expression. This standard even touches upon the care and attention that companies should have with respect to the rights of indigenous communities. Finally, the fourth standards deals with how product information influences consumers' decision and helps foster a trustful relationship between the company and the buyer. The former has the duty to ensure personal safety through the respect of health standards and safety protocols and offer quality information about a product or a service through proper labeling. Now that we have provided an essential summary of the four social standards, we can focus on the ESRS S2 specifically.
So now let's see what were the reasons behind the draft of the ESRS S2. First of all, it was to address all the labor rights violations. For years, companies outsourced labor without accountability, and this has led to poor working conditions, workers' exploitation, child labor, discrimination, and low wages, especially in global supply chains. Then also to enhance corporate accountability, these standards enforce transparency and due diligence, because there was no standardized reporting on labor practices and companies could hide or ignore violations. Also to align with international frameworks. ESRS S2 aligns with the UN, the OECD, and the ILO labor rights guidelines, and also supports the EU sustainability initiatives like the Green Deal and a sustainable finance strategy. And also to respond to all the stakeholders' pressure, because investors started to demand better ESG disclosure to assess labor risks, and also consumers and NGOs started to push for ethical sourcing and fair trade, urging companies to take responsibility. Then now we have the whole process of the development of the ESRS S2. In April 2021, there is a proposal of the CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, and this has set the foundation for a detailed ESG reporting. In April 2022, there is the first draft by the EFRAG with the input from corporations, NGOs, trade unions, and investors. Then in November 2022, after the stakeholders' feedback, ESRS S2 is officially introduced as a separate standard for workers in the value chains. In July 2023, the EC, the European Commission, approves the ESRS S2 as a part of the final ESRS framework. Then in January 2024, companies under the NFRD start reporting under ESRS. And also, a phased adaptation will extend for other large EU companies until 2026. Then here we have the challenges faced during the formation process. We have the resistance from the large companies because companies were concerned about high compliance costs and then the complexity of monitoring global supply chains. Then the balancing stringent regulations with feasibility. There was a need for flexibility, and this has led to a phased adaptation to avoid excessive burdens on businesses. Then, to align with global ESG standards, ensuring consistency with UN, OECD, ILO, GRI, and SASB, while avoiding reporting duplication, and this was difficult. Then also to ensuring reliable data collection and verification, labor data reporting had to be standardized across industries to ensure credibility. And also stakeholders' engagement and compliance support, because many businesses lacked a systematic approach in engaging workers, unions, NGOs in reporting. Then here we have the key principles behind the ESRS S2 development. We have the materiality assessment, because companies must identify and address the most critical labor risks in their supply chains. So high risk industries like mining, fashion, electronics face stricter reporting obligations. Then public consultation and stakeholder inclusion, because we have multiple rounds of public feedback, which has helped to shape ESRS S2 in order to ensure a balanced approach by including also business, NGOs, trade unions, and investors. Then the sector-specific considerations, because reporting is tailored to each industry's risk level. Then lastly, to harmonize with global standards, aligning with the UN, the OECD, and the ILO frameworks in order to reduce compliance burdens for multinational companies.
So the ESRS S2 is a standard under the social pillar of the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. And its goal is to ensure companies take responsibility for the security, well-being, and rights of all workers in their value chain, not just direct employees, but it promotes transparency and sustainable business practices. So, giving a definition for the workers in the value chain, we can say that workers include individuals involved in a company upstream and downstream activities, even if they are not directly employed. So, this includes suppliers, contractors, and others impacted by the company's operations. It differs from the ESRS S1, which focuses only on the company's own workforce. So, talking about the key areas of impact, we can say that companies must assess and manage material impacts on value chain workers in three main areas: the working conditions, so secure employment, fair wages, work-life balance, and safety. but also equal opportunities, so no gender gap, inclusion of people with disabilities, and anti-harassment measures. Then we have worker-related rights, so the prevention of child labor, forced labor, and ensuring access to basic needs like housing and sanitation. Talking about the disclosure requirements, we can talk about five main disclosure requirements. So the first one, we can say that the companies must report on policies, so how they prevent and manage risks for value chain workers. Engagement, so how they involve workers in decision making, including agreements with unions and support for vulnerable workers. Then we have the remediation, so mechanisms for addressing complaints and negative impacts, ensuring effective communication channels. Then we have the risk and impact management, so strategies to mitigate risks, improving working conditions and align business practices with human rights standards. Talking about the metrics and targets, we can say that companies must get measurable goals to reduce negative impacts and enhance opportunities for value chain workers. So this includes tracking progress, engaging with workers in the process, and aligning targets with international labor standards. So talking about the material assessment, we can say that the importance of the ESRS S2 is growing due to stricter regulations and like the Supply Chain Act and the CSDDD and the CSRD, which demand greater transparency and accountability in global value chains. So companies with complex global operations must prioritize worker well-being to comply with these regulations and avoid reputational damage.
Now we'll talk about the impact of European Sustainability Reporting Standard S2 workers in the value chain and its relation with sustainability initiatives, and also how it will shape financial markets, businesses, and society. The adoption of ESRS under the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive will be a major step toward a more sustainable EU economy, and the standards cover a wide range of ESG factors aligning with initiatives like the European Green Deal and the Agenda 2030. The European Green Deal aims to reach a climate neutral Europe by 2050, while the Agenda 2030 sets 17 development goals addressing issues like poverty, inequality, climate change. And ESRS S2 is particularly relevant to social sustainability, the social factor of the ESG factors, covering key sustainable development goals such as the gender equality, reducing inequalities, and especially the 8th Sustainable Development Goal, the most covered, decent work and economic growth. In some cases, ESRS S2 even covers topics that are not present in Sustainable Development Goals, such as work-life balance and social dialogue. Now let's talk about the benefits for businesses. Compliance with ESRS S2 will enhance sustainability risk management, helping firms detect, address, and even prevent supply chain labor-related risks, like child labor, forced labor, and inadequate wages, which can escalate into legal and reputational damages. It also offers a competitive advantage since investors are attracted to companies that are able to provide reliable ESG data. And other benefits are increased brand reputation, foster customer loyalty, and a strong stakeholder trust. There are also benefits for financial markets. ESRS reporting can provide investors with standardized ESG data, reducing information asymmetry like greenwashing. And investors and financial institutions will also be better equipped to understand long-term financial stability and ESG risks. Now, beyond the financial market and businesses' benefits, ESRS S2 will have a profound impact on society. And this standard will encourage fair wages, worker protections, and ethical sourcing in particular. And importantly, these effects will be extended beyond the EU, because also international companies selling in the EU market will need to comply to the ESRS rating global labor standards. Also, with greater transparency, consumers can make more conscious choices. And ultimately, finally, ESRS S2 is not just about compliance, it's especially about nurturing and fostering a culture of accountability. And it pushes companies to think beyond the short-term profits and to integrate sustainability into long-term goals and value creation. And in the long term, ESRS is a step toward sustainable economic growth. And it will benefit businesses, as I said, investors, and society alike. Thank you very much for your attention.